Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait for it to start snowing. Apparently it's just going to be a winter wonderland before we know it. That's what I've been promised. Get a quick ski in before I jump on that 6 a.m. flight tomorrow morning. So hi, thank you so much. We're going to be talking about social media, but I'll just make a disclaimer first that my background is public relations, journalism, communications, and public relations. So while I've worked in marketing communications, I'm not a marketer. I've worked for the past 30 years in PR, in tourism, starting from SeaWorld Resort right through to heading up the PR for Hamilton Island for 16 years, representing Aspen Skiing Company in Australia and New Zealand, looking after or heading up the PR department for Mantra Group, which is Peppers, Mantra and Break Free, both in Australia and New Zealand, and looking after a number of other tourism operators. For the past 10 years, while I've been running consultancies, I have been lecturing in public relations and journalism at both Griffith and Bond universities, and 3 years ago the folk at Bond thought, this social media thing, perhaps we should run a course on it. So in our faculty I was fortunate enough to write the first subject, and that was social media tactics. So we're 3 years in to that subject now. But let's start talking about our social media worth. I like to think of social media as a big conversation. So if this thing works, yeah. So if you think about the last conversation that you just had, so we've all just had a lovely lunch, was it worth the oxygen that you used? What did you actually get out of that conversation? Did you get something? Did somebody buy anything off you? Somebody booking into your hotel? Are they going to go on your tour? What was that conversation? What was it all about? Was it just for the sake of hearing the sounds of your melodious voice? Were you making just chit-chat with a stranger just to maybe get to know them a little bit better? Maybe you were trying to find out if there are any synergies between their life and your life. Maybe you're learning something, meeting somebody, laughing with somebody, or building on a relationship with somebody you already know. Did anybody, and I hope the answer's no, have a conversation where they were being sold washing powder? I mean, a sales pitch, a tourism product? No, I'd hope not, because that would be completely irrelevant. Now, thinking back to that conversation, if I asked you to put a dollar value onto your conversation, how much was that last conversation worth to you, if you were to put a dollar value on? It's a pretty hard question, isn't it? So for some, the value of that conversation might be in terms of just companionship, making a new mate, discovering a new contact or some common interests. Or it might just be something as simple as, wow, I just met a really nice person and I had a joke. For others, the value of that conversation might actually bear some fruit down the track. This might be an initial conversation. Hey, how you going? We swap business cards. We might catch up on LinkedIn. We might email. We might meet face to face in the next over the next few months, and maybe that conversation will bear some fruit down the track. But maybe the value of that conversation doesn't even lie in that conversation. Maybe it's where that conversation will take you in terms of, oh, okay, so you've got a problem. Actually, I know somebody who can help you out with that. Well, I have to introduce you to so-and-so. Like, they're absolute whiz in things like that. It's furthering the field. But let's think about the relationship that's formed from that conversation. We look at it not as a single conversation, but as something that we might be able to do something with in the future. Like, we've broken the ice. Today, when we've chatted with people that we haven't met before, we've broken the ice and we found out something that we've got in common, even if it is just a passion for developing our business or learning to be more effective in the tourism arena. So, but rather than just that one-on-one conversation, we've got the value of being able to reach out to a larger audience. So everybody in this room has now had access to a larger audience than the one they had yesterday, because they're here mixing with like-minded individuals, tourism professionals, digital professionals. And because we're together and we're like-minded, we've got the basis for a future relationship. So there's a fancy pants word for that, and in the social psychology world, we call that word propinquity. And it comes from a Latin word, which means nearness. So this nearness can be terms of proximity or kinship, or just a similarity of like attracts like. So it's when we're physically or psychologically in close proximity with each other, and it works on the basis that the people that we're around a lot, who we see frequently, are the people that we end up forming a relationship with. And that's what social media lets us do. So we may not be physically close to our audience or our customer, but social media allows us to be seen by them frequently. And psychologically, by being in front of them in their news feeds, by being there with a conversation that they're interested in, regardless of whether they actually want to participate in that conversation or just eavesdrop on it, they get used to seeing us, and they're more than likely to connect with us than they would over a brand that they'd never heard of before. So it's that familiarity, it's that initial exposure. So the more we meet and interact with our people, the more likely we are to become friends with them. And as we meet people, we become more familiar with them and we find out things that we like about them. So it's not so much a case of birds of a feather flocking together as birds that just happen to be near each other start to grow similar feathers. So how do we make this work? So a couple of the other speakers have already sort of touched on this, and it's such a key point, and that's all about building the trust. It's about getting to know our target audience and slowly building the trust to gain their respect. So it's sort of where, from like at the beginning stage, it's how we uncover like our internal stalker that lives within us all. So say you move to a new city and you've got no friends, you know absolutely nobody. You might join a gym, you might go to a coffee shop, sort of start getting the lay of the land. You start to see regular people, the same people there. You decide, who are the sorts of people that I actually want to be friends with? Who do I want to do business with? Who do I want to be involved with? So you target those people and you arrange your life so you bump into those people. And soon you get to know them, get invited to a few parties, a few networking nights, and bam, you're friends. In social media world, it's pretty much the same thing. You define who you want, who are you actually going after, and you work out where are they hanging out. And I'm going to hang out where they're hanging out. What LinkedIn groups are they involved in? What are they saying? Are they involved in any particular Facebook groups? What are their interests? What platforms are they on? What are they sitting on? Are they all Facebook users? Have they jumped ship? If they're teenagers, have they jumped ship from Facebook over to Instagram because they don't want to be where mum and dad are? But here's a newsflash, kids, mum and dad are coming, Instagram's taking off. So this is where we help, where we meet up with people and slowly we build our trust. So how do we build trust in social media? The first of all, we just want to listen. We want to see what people are saying, or listen to what people are saying. Now, there's a heap of social media tools that you can use to help you listen. One of my favourites is icerocket.com, and it's a free service, and it's run by Meltwater, which are a media monitoring agency. They've got a very aggressive approach to sales, so don't disclose your email to them or your phone number. My little tip. But you can put any sort of search terms in, and it'll tell you exactly what's being spoken about on those search terms in the social networks as well as on blogs. So a fantastic listening tool. The second one Cornelius also talked about is the famous radio station that we all love to be tuned into, the WII-FM, the What's in It for Me. So whatever you're talking about on social media, above anything else, needs to be addressed to your audience. So social media should be giving your audience a platform to show you what they need. They should be showing you what they're interested in and what they expect from you. So your social media should be about what matters to them. So we shouldn't really fall into the trap of our social media marketing being a set of tools for our marketing purposes, but it should be more about what our consumers, our customers, our audience are trying to get out of it. So the channel of me, WII-FM. Then the next thing to gain trust is ask, how can I serve you? So you take the me mentality a step forward. So instead of advertising, we're trying to build relationships and focus, because advertising focuses on what the consumers can actually give you as opposed to what you can give them. So if your audience knows that you've got a heartbeat, you're a human at the end of your social media, you're going to get a lot more trust out of them. And then, of course, we are going to aim for that ongoing engagement. We're not a fly-by-night. So probably the number one concern I hear from businesses is, this social media is so hard, it takes so much time. I've tried it for a year and I've got nothing out of it. It's just zapping my energy. I'm slowly kind of building a relationship, but it's just still too hard. I'm just going to leave it and go and focus on something else. That's where you see this. You see it all fall apart because it's not sustained. It is a marathon event, and as I alluded to earlier, it is so important to know your audience. And what your audience wants. So if you're only using social media to advertise, to promote, to sell, if you're only there to make the money, you're going to be overlooking the people. And it's the people that put the social into social media, and it's not going to work for you. So you need to use your social media analytics and make sure that the people that you're talking to now, the people that you're trying to build a relationship with, actually line up with the people that you ultimately want to do business with. And I'll show you how to do that shortly. I'll show you how to do it right now. I thought I had this right at the end. I thought it was, my kabam to, finish off with some really interesting, sexy analytics and then go, okay, any questions? So I'm assuming that nearly everybody in the room has got a Facebook page and that this sort of page looks familiar. So the most important thing to look at here on your people page is that your audience replicates the people that you are trying to do business with. So your target markets in terms of age and gender, but more importantly on Facebook, that you have got your geographical breakdown down pat. So this particular site is for a television program that only airs in Australia, in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Toowoomba area, that southeast corner of the Gold Coast. So they've only got 5,000 likes on their page, which in television terms is not very much, but they're all organically sourced. And you can see from the breakdown of where they're from that the majority of people are from Brisbane, Gold Coast, Ipswich and Toowoomba. So, and then you've got your out-of-towners from there. So in terms of an audience breakdown, this is exactly what they want, because it matches the show, it matches the content, as opposed to them having 50,000 people liking their page, but 30,000 are from international destinations. So it used to be in social media all about the likes. Go back into the olden days of social media, say 2012, and it was all about how many people liked our page. And there were lots of ways that we could go and get our likes. We went out and we begged for our likes. We bribed our likes. You like our page, we'll give you this. We tricked our likes. You want to win this holiday? Like our page, do this, do that, and then you might win. You might win a prize. And even back then it was normal and to actually go out and buy likes. I've worked with lots of big organisations with close to 1 million plus likes, or people that like their pages now, and they're having to clean up. So I worked with one company just recently. We had to purge 300,000 likes because they actually don't get that many visitors from Bangladesh. But when you looked at those demographics, it was completely throwing all of the things that matter out in terms of the potential of the reach of their message and the potential engagement. So in 2015, it's actually not about the like. We don't like the likes as much as we used to like the likes. So these days, it's about sharing. Now, sharing's nothing new. Society has been sharing since Eve was giving apples out to Adam, but we've moved on into an era of sharing now. We might be sharing way too much information. So there's more content out there from more sources, more people, more often, and people are getting information more quickly. So I'd like to sort of throw to some research that was done by the New York Times, and it was talking about the 6 personas of online sharers. So these are the sorts of people who are likely to, or not likely, to share your information. So your first group, these people are described as helpful, reliable, thoughtful and connected. These are the sorts of people that when they share your content, they'll say, I sent you a link about some nutrition and some wellness articles that I saw on Facebook. And then this person gets a big kick out of getting the thank you because they've helped their friend get a little bit healthier. Then you've got your careerists. These are the people that hang out on LinkedIn. It is so important for them to feel valuable, to be intelligent, and to be networkers. These are the people that share things related to their business interests and how to improve their personal brand in their business persona or their company's offerings to their customers. Then you've got the hipsters. These are your cutting-edge creatives. It's all about their identity and being young and popular. For them, sharing is just a part of who they are. Your boomerang sharers, these are the ones who want to get a reaction. So they want to feel empowered. You're more than likely to find them on Twitter, Facebook, but predominantly Twitter, trying to stir the pot a little bit. These are the people that say, look, when I post controversial things, it makes me look engaged and provocative, and I want to be perceived that way. Because if I don't get a result, if I don't get a response, then I know I've missed my mark. I've got to go stir my pot somewhere else. Then you've got your connectors. These are your creatives, relaxed, thoughtfuls. These are the people that are making plans. You'll find them mainly on Facebook, and they're people trying to bring other people together. So they're the ones that'll say, hey, I got this great deal at the bar at the QT Hotel, so let's get a group of friends together and have a night out. And then the last group, as identified by the study, are the selectives. These are the people that only share things if it is very specific. So they will only share if they think it's relative or relevant to the particular audience. So if it's not relevant to their audience or not relevant to them, then there's no point in sharing. Because at the end of the day, your audience is your gatekeeper on their feed. So they decide what they want to share, and particularly for this selectives group, they'll only share what they think is a extension of their personality or how they want to be perceived online. And they're not going to share any content from people that they don't trust. So trust is the cost in social media. It's the cost of entry for being shared. So it's all about the trust. So the study also examined the motivations for people to share content online. And of these motivations, it's interesting to note that there's only one of them that's actually about the sharer themselves. So everything else is about helping other people. So let's just have a look at some of the stats on why people share. So we share from an information management perspective. So this is just trying to get information out. So 73% say they process information more deeply, thoroughly and thoughtfully when they share it. And 85% say reading other people's responses helps them understand and process information and events. So this sort of person says, sharing information helps me do my job. So I remember products and information sources better when I share them, and I'm more than likely to use them. The other motivation, and this is a primary one, is to give value and entertainment. So nearly everybody in the study said that they carefully considered how the information they share will be useful to the recipient, and around half of them say sharing helps them inform others of things that they care about. So these sorts of people say, I share to enrich the lives of those around me. So 68% share information to define themselves. They like to share information that would reinforce the image that they'd like to present. So that they're thoughtful or reasoned or kind or interested or passionate about certain things. So 78% say that they share information online to stay connected to people that they may not otherwise stay in touch with. And 73% share info because it helps them connect with others who share their interests. So this is where the companionship and your conversations come into play. And it is an example, and I'll use an example of somebody that I did some work with the week before last. And it was a website that's called startsatsixty.com, and it's only just in Australia and it's not quite in New Zealand yet. But it's a great example of them using social media to connect with people, to grow and nourish. So this page has, I think it's got about 100,000 likes. I can't remember how many people actually like the page, but it's their engagement that just blows the numbers out of the ballpark. So each week, or in the last 2 weeks ago when I looked at it, they had 35,000 comments on their Facebook in 1 week. These are stories about targeting active 60-year-olds. So people that were either just retired or approaching retirement, that didn't feel old but felt that they had a heap of life left in them. So they had 35,000 comments, 50,000 shares, 160,000 likes, all in 1 week. And that's because their content was focused on growing and nourishing that relationship with that particular market segment. So 69% say that they share info to feel more involved in the world. These are the people that say, I enjoy getting comments that I send great information because my friends will forward it to their friends, and it's so helpful that I'm so helpful, and it makes me feel valuable that I'm helpful. And 84% say loud and proud that they're happy to promote causes or brands on social media, and they share it because it's a way to show that they care. But ultimately it comes back to that relationship and building a conversation around the relationships, and that it's more about connecting people with other people and making them feel useful. So how can you help your audience connect with others and share your message along the way? Oops. You can make them look smart. You can give them the information that they need to know in order to be a strong advocate for your brand. Make them look useful by giving them information that they can share with their friends to improve their friends' lives, or you can just make them look cool. So, and whether that's just with new, unique ideas of product or new and cool ways of doing things. But ultimately, to do this, your audience has to trust you, because they're not going to share their information unless they trust you. And trust is something that you can't buy, but it's also something that doesn't happen overnight. So it's a sustained effort, and it's based on mutually beneficial communication. So it goes back to the old adage of public relations, and that it was just building mutually beneficial communication with different targeted publics and building up trust across all sectors to get your message out. So, but that's a big secret, because a lot of people don't understand what PR is. So now you know the big secret of PR is trust. They call it earned media for a reason, and that you can't buy it. So you can buy and invest in the vehicles that will get you in front of your target audiences, but ultimately, in order to have the success, you need to have earned that trust first. So trust is a sustained effort based on mutually beneficial communication and activity. So in your social media activities, how do you build up your trust? So particularly in your content, generation. So you can back up any points that you make with any credible references. So instead of just going off half-cocked and saying that people love winter in New Zealand, actually have some facts to back it up. And if you don't have the facts, go out and get it. Don't be afraid to use social media as a two-way tool of communication, because ultimately you don't have a conversation with a mirror and you don't have a conversation with yourself. Get your audience to tell you what they think. Survey them. Find out what they think. So then you've got a heap of data that you can use for your content generation. Find out what they like, find out what they don't like, find out what their intentions are, and then you can use that to build on your content. So another way is to give value. and to just drop the sales pitch. So, so for a person coming to Christchurch for a long weekend, it's not about where I'm going to stay and what tours I'm going to do, but it's more about what experiences I'm going to have. Where can I taste some great local produce? Where can I hook into some fantastic New Zealand wine? I want to go shopping. Where are the great New Zealand designers? Where are they based? How do I get places? What should I do? Any great shows? From a lifestyle perspective. I was talking before at lunchtime and said that the role of management of any sort of social media platform is really that of an editor or a publisher. And instead of just looking at, this is my marketing plan and these are the messages that I'm going to pump out, think of yourself as the editor-in-chief and say, well, if my Facebook page was a magazine, what would my readers be interested in reading about? And from a tourism perspective, that's more than just somewhere to sleep and something to do during the day, that they're interested in lifestyle, they're interested in food, they're interested in wine, they're interested in nature, environmentalism, they're interested in the backstories of the people that put together their holiday experience. So the value comes in that storytelling. And that storytelling can come directly from your audience, and you can build trust by showcasing social proof. So you don't need to be television producers to make a YouTube video, for example. That you can shoot a short little testimonial with a guest as they're checking out, or they're leaving you. Just shoot it on an iPhone or an iPad, even somewhere quiet, so the sound isn't compromised. But that's something that you can actually put up on your social media channels, put up on your websites as a little bit of, of social proof. And the last bit is to keep it simple, like really, really, really simple. Stuff will get shared if it's simple because it's not going to be confused. So, has everybody heard of the news site Upworthy? So they did some research, and it just goes to show how important it is to keep your message really, really simple. Is that their research showed that 50% of their shares come from people who have read less than half of the article. So this means that people are deciding really, really quickly whether the content is worth sharing based on their dealings with Upworthy, and that they know that it's a reputable source of information, but also on their heading, the headline, and the introduction is giving them the info that they need, whether they decide to share it or not. So keep it really simple and get straight to the point with your headlines. But it's not about sensational headlines. I think anybody that subscribes to a lot of digital blogs, it's on the number of blogs that I've received and articles that I've received and seen, how to write headlines. And it's, I think that it's not really about the headlines, particularly in a traditional newsroom sort of way. So I started my career as a journalist, and I was a pretty shocking journalist, just a little bit too much Pollyanna in me, I think. But and the newsrooms back in the 80s were very, very, very scary places. And if it bleeds, it leads. That was the name of the game. And bad news sells, and no news is good news, and good news is no news. So get out there and find me a decent story, Sullivan, would be what I'd get. And I just couldn't do it. So that's when I stepped over into the dark side of PR and was much happier over there. And I use, social media today really is the modern scaled version of PR of the 80s and the 90s. But But yeah, if it bleeds, it leads isn't the way that it goes down in the world of social media, particularly when you're trying to build trust and you're trying to motivate people to share. Because the top motivator for making people share content, full stop, is that the message is positive. So there's some research conducted recently at the University of Pennsylvania that showed that while negative stories were well read, it was the positive ones that were most shared. So you might have read the negative story, but when it came to sharing it with your family and your friends and your peers, you hesitated because you care about how they're going to react. And you didn't want to be the one passing on the bad news because you didn't want to be Debbie Downer, because Debbie Downer is no match for polypositive. And one of the interesting findings from this research was that articles and columns with a scientific sort of background or nature were more likely to be shared than non-scientific arguments. So if you can pull a little bit of social science or psychology or the reasons that motivate people to seek a particular tourism experience into your content, you'll have a greater chance of being shared. So the research found that science arouses feelings of awe, and it made people want to share the positive emotion with others. So people also share articles that are exciting or are funny. And from a negative side, yes, there was some sharing with articles that arouse some level of anger or anxiety, and you could really pull that back to an environmental message where there's some level of activism involved because you're trying to motivate a bit of action, but they don't share things that just merely left them sad. So the goal is to try to arouse people one way or another. So they either feel very passionately, positively or negatively on an article. But the more positive an article, the more likely it is to be shared. So the key factors to influence sharing. We've talked about trust, which I'm going to talk about more. So some of these key factors is appeal to your audience's motivation to connect with each other, not just with your brand. So as a publisher, you're trying to create a platform that's going to create comments and create sharing. Once you get some commenting and sharing happening on your platform, you will get a higher reach with your social media. That starts at 60 example that I gave you. They're actually just blitzing the Facebook algorithm at the moment because of the level of comments, but also the number of people that are actually just reading through the comments, regardless of whether or not they're commenting. So try and get people to connect with each other. And remember that trust is your cost of entry for getting shared. And keep it simple, really simple, so it gets shared and your message doesn't get muddled along the way. And if you can make somebody smile, or better still, make them laugh, through that positivity, you'll get shared as well. A sense of urgency is something that every marketer uses, particularly for their calls to action, and that is something that can work quite successfully in social if you are trying to actually sell something. So the ratio is usually 80% talking about your audience, talking about what they want, and 20% talking about you and your organisation and your people. So if you've got a special deal that actually is truly special and it's a last minute offer, or it's something exclusively for Facebook people, or it's something only for the next 48 hours, social is a great way to push that out, but only in very small bite sizes, because you don't want to be like the rug company that has 70% off every single week for the last 7.5 years. So, and remember that getting shared is just the beginning. That the idea is to get shared again, stop, listen, talk to your audience, respond, and to keep that conversation going. So the key to everything is patience. So you get the chicken by hatching the egg, not by smashing it, says Arnold Glasgow. So social media, particularly when you are relying on organic reach, is a slow and steady process. It is a process that can be sped up through advertising, so through boosting, through targeting, but I'm sort of talking today from an organic perspective. But the time and the effort, so everybody that I've spoken to so far today said, oh my God, the time it spends on it. It can be a zap on your time and your energy. The average small to medium-sized business spends 6 to 10 hours a week on social media. If you've got somebody, a millennial, in charge of your social media, so somebody who's in their 20s, expect them to be spending 20 hours a week on it, because they'll be doing it even when they're not at work. So the younger you are, the more likely to be the longer you're spending on social media. But it's not about just pushing your messages out and responding to comments. The time is spent, liking other pages, joining other groups, listening, finding content to share, having partnership with other businesses so you can share each other's content and sell by stealth in partnership. There's heaps of tools out there that can help you with your social media management, so it isn't a zap on your time. From good old Hootsuite, which I think is still free, where you can put all of your different pages and different platforms all on one screen and manage it completely from there, so you can respond to comments, respond to messages, and another one, the one that I'm using at the moment, is Sprout Social, which I like because I love its analytics and its graphs for presentations. But using a social media management tool, they're not expensive, can save you a heap of time because you're not jumping between platforms. You've got it open in front of you and you can manage it straight from there. So when it comes to working out a return on investment, this is where most social media managers get very, very, very frustrated. And most PR people used to get very frustrated as well. So going, yes, well, that's great. We're doing okay. We've got this. We're doing an annual report. We've got shareholders meetings. We're doing a heap of media relations. We're doing this and that and the other. So what's the actual return on investment? I'm investing $200,000 a year in public relations. Where's it showing on my bottom line? Something that's been hard to measure since day dot, and it's the same with your social media. I'm sorry to say that I don't have the magic ROI formula on what it should be, because social media is more than just measuring the dollars and the cents. And in fact, I'd like to throw it out there that it's not even about the return on investment, but it's about a return on relationship. So there's a book out there actually called Return on Relationship by Ken Rubin and Catherine Rose. And they say that the return on investment will actually come over time through loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. And a quote from the book is, relationships are like muscle tissue. The more they're engaged, the stronger and more valuable they become. So anybody in this room can become a bodybuilder in the next 2 years. You can all go and enter Mr. or Mrs. World, and you can spray tan yourself up with that Vegemite stuff, and you can all do it if you put in the time and the effort. And it's the same with your social media. So your social metrics, like the numbers of people who like your Facebook page, your followers on Instagram and Twitter, your retweets, your site visits, your video views, all your ratings, etc. While they're not financial assets, it certainly doesn't mean that they're worthless. So instead, they're leading indicators that we're doing something that's creating value. And in the long term, that will result in a strong return on investment.